Bernadette. For those of you who don't know me, I am the creator and channel of the award-winning, I can now say that, the award-winning Arc Animal Tarot and Oracle deck, as well as the publisher of whatismyspiritanimal.com and buildingbeautifulsouls.com. And today's video really was born of, well, a lot of you have asked questions about mediumship. Some of you do know that that's how I first got started in the metaphysical industry, is as an evidential medium. And then I had several experiences this past week. Holy cow, they were so powerful and so profound that I was just like, you know what? I've got to do this video. So if you don't know what mediumship is, it is the connecting with and communicating with people and animals who have crossed over or died. Sometimes they're called incarnates. And I'm, again, what's called an evidential medium. And that started way back during the spiritualism movement. You can look up what spiritualism is. And basically, what that means is that as a medium, we're able to produce evidence to support whatever messages are being sent through to the client or the friend or the family member, whoever you are trying to get messages for. We give them specific evidence to support the messages that come through at that time. So case in point, one of the things because this video is to teach you how to more readily access that part of your psychic self and then work with the animal kingdom to help you get those messages. And I just know from experience that when you can have animal energy in medicine in a reading, especially an evidential mediumship reading, clients seem to be able to take the information and work with it, I think, a little more deeply. Maybe it doesn't scare them as much, or maybe they're a little more believing. I'm not really sure what it is, but the minute you bring up animals and medium, when you're talking to their people on the other side, or even their animals on the other side, they love it. It means so much to them. And, this is a form of animal communication, or rather, my opinion is that animal communication, like being a pet psychic, that kind of thing, is a form of mediumship, in particular if you are communicating with pets or other animals who have crossed over. So case in point, this last week I have a reading. It's a gal a client I hadn't talked to in about a year, and maybe 3 or 4 minutes before it was time for her session, I was walking down my hallway and bloop, pops out this humongous lizard. Now, I live in Florida, y'all, so it's not, down south they have iguanas and, those kind of exotic problems down there, but we don't have that here in central North Florida. We just don't. We have geckos and skinks and, that kind of thing. And there are a few other kinds, but this guy was big. And so I was like, I got to get you out of here because I have cats, and the Fangoria family will undoubtedly find you, and that will be the last of you, mister, so let's go. So this lizard just looked up at me, and he was in perfect health. It wasn't like he was stunned or dehydrated or anything. And he just let me walk up to him, had a real gentle feel about him. And I reached down and I was picking him up, and all of a sudden my dog was like, and I scared the hell out of the lizard. The lizard went, because she scared me, and I jumped, and then the lizard jumped, and then that was it. It was like Keystone Cops around my house trying to get this lizard, right? So in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, I've got a client. I'm going to be late for this client. But if I leave and I don't see where the lizard is, the cats are going to get him. I was having a moment, y'all, a moment. So as is my style, I was like, the client can wait. I'm getting this lizard. So I finally get the lizard. I put the lizard outside, wish him well. We had, kiss, kiss, hug, hug. Nice to see you. Stay safe. And off he goes, or she. So I get on the horn with my client, and I took one look at her, and you didn't have to be a medium to know this woman was in a state of grief that you only see when something truly, truly tragic has happened. Not like it's a contest, somebody that loses their grandma, whomever, in a peaceful manner. They pass in their sleep, or they've been sick for a while. But there's something a little bit different about that than someone who's, say, been murdered, or they disappear, never to be seen again, or, they suffered for a long time. You know, again, there's not a degree of trauma. There's not a degree that's not a contest, but some people just wear grief, you know, in such a way that, you know, it's not going to be good. So I said to her just that. I said, I can see on your face that you're suffering terribly from grief. So should I just go right into the reading? She said, yes. And I said, I feel like you're grieving the death of someone that was your heart, your world, and that there's an investigation involved. And she broke down and she said, yes, my son was killed in March. So just literally a few months ago. I said, okay, you going to be okay? Are you sure, you know, are you sure that you're okay with this now? Are you ready? And she said, absolutely. So that's about all I can divulge, obviously, from a client reading, except for the next part that I'm going to divulge, which was after the other very specific evidentiary messages, right? Such like, this is what the car looked like. Here's who I feel might have been involved. This is some 411 on them, some specifics, so on and so forth. Just about the situation, you know, in its total. It shocked me so much at the time. I don't know why. I've been doing this forever. It's not like I don't believe in the magic, and it's not like I haven't, you know, been the vehicle, the channel, the vessel for tons of information for literally tens of thousands of people at this point. I just happen to I love all my clients, but this client, for a number of reasons, has a very special place in my heart. My heart was just hurting so badly for her. Anyway, I don't remember what she said, but I looked at her and I went, I need to tell you what went on right before your reading. And I told her the whole lizard story. And I went, so before you say anything, lizards represent regeneration, which can easily mean reincarnation. Lizards represent, and I just went down this whole thing about what lizards and reptiles represent. And one of those things is just, I just couldn't get it off my mind when I was chasing this lizard all around the house, which is lizards are a big, especially in Aboriginal cultures, they're a big sign of the dream time. Like if you live in a place where there are a lot of lizards, please don't think that, you know, when the 35 lizards run, you know, past you and while you're in your pool, don't think that every one of them has a special message for you, because that's probably not the case. But when you have a lizard ploop show up right in front of you in an unusual place in an unusual way, it's time to listen to that. And so lizards are big dream harbingers, meaning whatever's happening in your dreams, you must pay attention to them, because the world of spirit is trying to get through to you, to give you information that will be helpful to you, supportive of you and your loved ones, whoever you're kind of responsible for, you're involved with, that kind of thing. So I talked about all that, and the more I talked, the quieter she got and the stiller she got. And I could tell it was putting her more deeply into shock. And I said, listen, I can see with my Bernadette eyes, not my psychic eyes, not my shamanic journeying eyes. I don't know that this is helping you. I feel like it's hurting you more. I said, can you help me out here? Should I stop? Should I keep going? She goes, oh no, you should keep going. So I said my piece, and she goes, okay, now I'm going to tell you why my face was doing what my face was doing. She said, just 2 days ago, I was in Walmart in the grocery section and came eye to eye with a big orange plastic lizard. She said, and I bought it and I placed it on my son's grave just 2 days ago. And she and I both just started crying. Now, I don't recommend crying in front of your clients. There, some metaphysicians, some mediums, some psychics think it's okay, that it gives you more of a bond with your clients. Personally, I find, that when someone else is in deep trauma, yes, they need compassion, but they need someone else who can be in control so that they can feel comfortable and safe letting their hair down and just falling apart if they need to. Which, when we're talking about a scenario like this, it's very difficult to keep your composure, both for the medium, because we're all empaths, And especially if you know that your client is also a very sensitive person and you don't want them feeling sorry for you or feeling responsible for how you are feeling, right? So I always recommend keep your composure, keep your compassion, but keep your composure. I just couldn't help it. I was just like, ugh. So I had to ask her, I'm like, what's the lizard story? And why did you comment on the color orange? Because, you know, the color orange ties to the sacral chakra, which is all about your zest for life. It's your life force. It's your vitality. And she said orange was his favorite color. And as a kid, he just like creepy crawly, lizardy, snaky, insecty, just was kind of a weird kid in that way. And I knew the minute that I saw that lizard, he was for me. He put it there. And I said, I'm so glad that you trust that. I said, because I can't fathom how a lizard got in my house this morning. My house is tight as a drum. I don't know how this lizard got in. And furthermore, if that lizard was in my house for 5 minutes, I can't believe one of my cats wasn't already walking around with the poor little guy hanging out of its mouth, you know, trying to find me and gift it to me. And I said, but that is my way of knowing that your son has already shown up for you today and that he orchestrated from the other side a visitation. So is it okay if I continue on with messages? Well, God love this kid. He's a very clear communicator from the other side. He had so many very specific messages. And so really where I am going in this video is to teach you a little more, or maybe just offer these things as a reminder, how you can tap in more to your own mediumship abilities. And there's nothing really so different, I have found, than mediumship from psychic things, from shamanic journeying. You're getting messages from somewhere, and the hope is that you are an ethical enough practitioner that you'll want to get evidence. So for instance, that evidence of the lizard was brought to you by the world of spirit animals. It wasn't brought to you just through me, because I, the medium, you, the medium, we are the bearers of the message, but we're not the givers of the message, if that makes sense. Those messages are coming from the discarnates, the souls that have passed on, and they're in another dimension, another reality, another world. There are a million different names for it, but you get what I'm saying. So I read for this gal, and she'd never had a reading before. And I said, well, are you open to mediumship? And I had to explain what it was. And she said, oh, yes, there's actually a bunch of people I want to hear from. I'm like, okay, well, let me see what I can do. So immediately a spirit showed up, and I said, I feel like I'm talking to someone who's had shaved, their hair was shaved on the side, like shaved, but was longer on the top. She said, oh my God. And I said, stop. Because as an evidential medium, you don't want to get any information from your client. And that way you and your client both can always trust and be sure that that reading is pure, and you're not dovetailing it intentionally or unintentionally off of information that they've given you. And I said, well, he's telling me that you guys shared a very special kind of sandwich. White bread on the bottom, meat in the middle, and white bread on the top, which sounds like any old sandwich that most anybody would eat, but it was a very specific, very special kind of sandwich that you guys shared. And when I did that, she turned white as the proverbial ghost. And she said, I can't think of the kind of sandwich. And I was like, okay. I said, I'm asking him for, and then I said, him. Oh, okay. I'm asking him for another piece of evidence, another piece of information. And he's telling me that you guys had a shared experience with a really pretty significant car accident. And she said, yes. My twin brother was the first one on the scene when I was in a bad car accident, the first one I wanted to see. He, helped save me. They had a shared experience. I said, okay, I know I'm talking to him. I'm being told to go back to the sandwich. And I said, I'm still being told you guys shared a particular kind of sandwich, a very special kind, of sandwich. And she said, well, the only thing that I can really think of is that we worked at Wendy's together. And I'm like, right, white bread, meat, white bread, a special, particular kind of sandwich, Wendy's. Now I know. So he went on to tell me lots of things about her situation, where she was going to be going, what choices she's going to be making, doing that kind of thing. And it was a really powerful reading, especially for somebody who's never had a reading before. So some of the steps to getting there, where you are working with the animal spirits, because if this is your first video with me, let me be clear. I think that humans can also be spirit animals. It doesn't have to be a fox or a whale or an insect or, whatever, a bird. Humans are animals. That is our classification. And in that, we can be spirit animals. So, that said, what kind of things can you do to open up your mediumship skills, maybe wider, be a more clear channel for spirit, and get evidence, rather than being the kind of reader who, when someone calls them and they want mediumship, or they show up in their office or on a video meeting or whatever, that they instantaneously start with, you're so loved at this time, and your loved ones are right next to you. Oh, I can feel them. I've got the goosebumps. I can see them. That may be true sometimes, but if that's all you can bring to the table as a medium, if that's all you want to bring to the table as a medium, you could do a lot better job for your clients. A lot better job. You can do better than saying, you're surrounded by angels at this time. That's very different than saying, like I said to this girl with the twin brother who died, I do see you surrounded by angels. And she was like, my nanny collected angels and, that kind of thing. Okay. She had one or two. Oh no, hundreds, literally hundreds of figurines. Oh, well, okay. That's evidence, right? And I did get to say to her, you're surrounded by angels at this time, because she's got a bunch of her nanny granny's figurines or whatever. But to do that, to be able to really get that evidence, please remember that your relationship, and this is where it begins, your relationship is not just with your client. Your relationship is with the being that's on the other side, because they're still alive in their own way, in their own form at that time. So when you start creating an authentic, honest, loving, compassionate relationship with the world of spirit, they will help you do your job to such an extent that really you just kind of have to sit back and be a ventriloquist dummy. You can just kind of sit back and relax and say whatever they tell you to say. And, I hope this was helpful. Thank you. Come again. So how do you do that? How do you create that? Well, you start with inside of yourself with deciding what level of medium do you want to be? Do you want to be evidentiary? To what degree? Do you want to allow spirits to change your voice when you're speaking? I did a reading for a gal. She'd never had a reading before. She was very anxious to hear from her dad. And I started taking on the characteristics of her father, the cadence of his voice, very specific phrases and words that he would use, in his attitude, the look in his eye, the movement of his head. And in a way, that's channeling. Some people are not comfortable with channeling. But I have channeled to such an extent that I read for a gal one time some years ago, and I was like, I kept feeling my lips, and I said, does my face look like it's swelling to you? I feel like I'm having an allergic reaction. She said, no. I said, could you hold on just a minute, please? And I went into the bathroom, and I'm like looking at my face, and I'm feeling my lips swell and my nose swell, and I'm feeling my eyes start to close, and I'm feeling like my cheeks are getting really big. And I'm like, this is so weird, but I got to finish this reading. So I go back in there and I explain everything. And she said, let me ask you a question. I said, okay. And she asked me the question and I went, that's right. And I jumped and she jumped and we both just looked at each other. She said, that's my ex-husband who's African-American, a very famous African-American. And he always used to say things like that. She said, I think that's why your face was swelling. You had a very round face, very big lips, a very big nose. And he would talk like that. And I didn't know this lady. It took me a minute to when she said who her ex-husband was, because he was famous. It took me a minute or two to go, oh, I know that name. Okay. So that's channeling. That's one form of channeling. And that can help give you evidence, which the animal spirits can help you get. So for instance, I read another gal just a week or so ago, never had a reading before. And I said, your husband is showing me that you have a particular fondness for blonde dogs that have hair about the color of yours. And she said, yes. And they're called golden poos, or I don't know. They're a mixture of a golden retriever and a big poodle. Who knew? I didn't know. So, and that's the color. They've got this honey blonde color that they are, like the color of this lady's hair. And they had a whole herd of them, a whole pack of them, I should say. So, those animals showed up at that moment, not her husband. The animals themselves showed me, and all of those animals had not passed, but animals don't have to be passed away to give you messages. See, that's animal communication, but it's still mediumship. It's still psychic. It's still shamanic journeying. Give it whatever label you want. It is what it is, right? And you're going to practice it the way that you're going to practice it. So how you create a relationship is to show up for them. Meaning if they put a vision or a taste or a sound or a feeling in your head, in your heart chakra, in your third eye, maybe you feel it in your stomach, maybe you feel it in your ankles, maybe you feel it in your root chakra, honor that and be willing to say that to the client, even if you don't know what it means at that moment. You guys can all explore it together, meaning sometimes, I don't know why that kid couldn't just say we worked at Wendy's together. He could have shown me the Wendy's sign. I've had it happen before, in particular with Target. It was a hilarious thing. It was just hilarious. But he did the whole hoopty about the particular special kind of sandwich that we shared. Okay, that was his way of getting it across. That's his choice, right? My job is to help pass those messages along and help interpret them if they're not 100% clear the first time. So be honest. I got to tell you, the world of spirit, they will cut you off, but quick if you are not honest with their people. Oh, yes, they will. So if you didn't get something accurate, the world is not going to fall apart. I tell my clients all the time, listen, you're telling me no, and I hear you. I hear you telling me no. And the way I work with spirit is I've asked them, if I really got this wrong or I'm hearing something that's future oriented, like when I read for this one girl with the brother with the worked at Wendy's together, I kept rocking. I just kept wanting to rock. And I was like, was your brother on the autism scale? Are you on the autism scale? Was it literally, I'm into rock? No, he like popped me, everything was no. So finally I was like, I don't know why I keep feeling the rocking, but I'm going to let it go. And sure enough, the very next client, she got one message and she started rocking. She rocked the whole video like this. So I was picking up on the client after, for whatever reason. And I'm glad I didn't stay on and harp on it, because the feeling that I got about the rocking, it stayed for a little while. So I know that had to do with that client, the first one, but because it wasn't like this really strong feeling, it didn't get bigger and bigger and bigger of a feeling. I knew that it wasn't 100% for that client, right? And that's how it works with me. That's my agreement with spirit. I'm like, listen, you guys, if I'm getting it wrong, just take away the message, take away the feeling, the smell, the taste, the vision, the whatever, just take it away. But if it really is for them, keep knocking on my door, and that's what they do. Those spidey messages that they send me keep getting bigger and bolder and more powerful, more pronounced, I should say, right? So my favorite thing is when people, especially because people post this on Facebook, and sometimes I do too, but it's very, very rare. Oh, the spirits kept me up all night. That is that's your doing. If you want to let them in at 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, then that's what you do. But you don't leave the front door to your house open 24/7 and let strangers just run willy-nilly in and out of your house. This is your house. Don't let strangers run willy-nilly in throughout. Now, sometimes, I had a situation, I don't know, a few weeks ago. There was a guy hanging out in my office that kept smoking cherry tobacco in a pipe. I happen to like the smell of pipe tobacco, so I let him hang around. But he hung around all day, and finally, I was like, is one of your people coming to me this week? And he said, Facebook. Okay. I got on Facebook and I posted, can anybody claim yak, yak, yak? And then a couple people, I gave him very specifics. And then a couple of people messaged me, and I was like, well, he was really known for saying right as rain. And he wants you to know everything's going to be right as rain. And she goes, I know exactly who that is, because he said it all the time. And the family, joking him, started saying it all the time. And now that he's gone, we say it to honor him all the time, right as rain. That is so specific. That is so evidentiary that I know it was her papa. I know it. And the point of that is talking about evidence, but it's also talking about, it's okay if you set boundaries. In fact, you're going to be much better off. You're going to be a much stronger receiver, because your energy, your battery won't get drained so much so often. So set boundaries with them. Listen, guys, office hours here. Please show up, unless it's like some crazy emergency or whatever boundaries or, determination rules you want to make. It's your life. It's your mediumship. It's your reading. Do your thing. So the other thing I will tell you is that you should be very clear what kind of person you will allow to show up. I have always been very clear to Spirit. If you were a ne'er-do-well, like, I don't mean like if you stole something or, you cheated on a test or, maybe you ran a red light or, whatever. But if you were like a super ne'er-do-well where all you did was harm other people in whatever capacity, I'm not interested. I don't want to talk to you. I just don't. I don't. And that's my choice. Now, I did have it happen one time. Don't know how this guy slipped through my nets. He was very respectful. But the first time he showed up, I said to my client, I have someone here who is making me feel highly uncomfortable. I feel like this was not a good person at all. He died at his own hand. And, he was not a good person, and it involved children. And she said, my uncle just committed suicide because the FBI was onto him for running a child pornography ring. Okay. Woof. Woo. I said, do you want a message from him? Yes, I do. Gave her the message, and I said, now I'm going to ask him to go away because I'm not interested in being his vessel. I'm not a healer. I don't work in that realm. I'm a message bearer. That's it. I said, I'm sorry if that offends you. She said, no, I completely understand. So that's the only time. And then, people talk about, entities getting attached to you and this and that. I've seen no credible evidence of that. I'm not saying I don't believe in it. I believe that everything is possible. I just don't believe at that moment in things getting attached. I need to see evidence of it. So that said, going back to the animals and creating your relationship with the world of animal spirits. That's with the people spirits that have passed over. With the animal spirits who can often guide you, they will often bring their mommies and daddies forth when the mommies and daddies on the other side may not be particularly good yet at understanding how to navigate both realities, both dimensions, both worlds, and communicate effectively with the medium. What would you do to create a relationship with any animal? You would know where they like to be scratched or petted, or you would, maybe feed a hungry animal or adopt an animal. You would volunteer at a shelter. You would make a donation to a sanctuary. Just things to honor, not just in lip service, actions speak louder than words, and animals really respond to that. So once you have your relationship established, then you can ask the animal kingdom to bring you very specific messages, or messages in the way that you can interpret them easily. I'm not sure why they're not more blunt with me sometimes. Had a gal call. I said, I feel like you lost your husband, and he's telling me that you'll know that I'm talking to him because you used to bake him. His favorite cake was a fruit cake, but not like a Claxton fruit cake with the candied fruit in it, but it was a fruit cake. I have no idea what you're talking about, she said. I'm saying, okay. I asked him to show me what the cake looked like, and I see a 2-layer cake with dark dots all the way through it. I would have guessed they're chocolate chips, but he's nodding his head no. He's saying a fruit cake. And she said, oh my God. I used to make him this old Southern recipe, which is a tomato soup cake with raisins in it. Now, I'm a Southerner. I've never heard of that. I can't think of anything more disgusting, but this lovely, lovely guy with the greatest sense of humor loved this cake. And the minute that we identified this particular kind of fruitcake, now why couldn't he have just said there are raisins in the cake? Oh no, he had to say fruitcake, but not the Claxton fruitcake kind. I don't know. I don't remember what it's like to be a spirit on the other side, so I don't understand what it takes to communicate and get the messages through, but they do. So, okay. So ask them for the kinds of messages that you can easily interpret, and set the intention for the reading. Is it, I've always found that mediumship readings are healings. I mean, listen, the only reason I'm in this business is because my mom was killed for medical negligence, and I'd probably still be in the entertainment business, coaching actors and managing actors and that kind of thing. Who knows what I would be doing, but this was the farthest thing from my mind until she was killed. And that was in 1997. And still, when I go to get a reading, because I like to get readings with other mediums and psychics and tarot readers. I have a trusted 2 that I go to when things are really important. But when I was in Sedona, I went to every store and I signed up for everybody, because it's also a way of studying as a practitioner. You're always going to learn something from somebody. And some of them were complete and total crap. Like, I stopped one lady. I was like, just because you happen to recognize me from my spirit animal website, please don't tell me I was a Native American chief. That might be true, but you can't offer me one lick of evidence that tells me that. You're just rambling. I don't want to finish this reading. And from one reader to another, I don't really respect that. I wish this had been a different experience for both of us. So, and then I went to another reader who told me things that I felt just like my clients do when they come to me. I was like, that's fantastic. You are so tapped in. You are such an open channel. Thank you so much. Because I had some big things on my heart and my spirit at that time, and she cleared them right up. I mean, 5 minutes we were done. I was like, well, what else do you want to talk about? So it's important that you set the intention. How much healing do you want to facilitate? And I don't mean like Reiki or quantum touch or, any of the kinds of energy healing, Qigong kind of things that people get involved with, because really every mediumship, a good mediumship reading, an evidential mediumship reading, is some of the most healing things that can happen for people, really. But it will, depending on the intention of the reading, like some people don't want to be healed. They want to know where Uncle Fester's insurance papers are. They want to know who might have been involved in a murder. They want to know, all kinds of things. And that's your job, to get that evidence, that intel, that information from the spirits. But when you set the intention of kind of what type of reading it's going to be, especially with animals, they want to know, because they don't lollygag. They show up, they tell you what they need to tell you, and then they scamper off or swim off or fly off. They just don't hang around, really. Even the dogs and the cats, they just don't hang around. Not with me anyway. They might with other people, but my experience has been that they don't. So with your mediumship, it's important that you that it's so important that you work hard to move past your fear of being wrong, because then that makes you unconfident. It makes your client unconfident. It makes the animals unconfident. And you might hear something incorrectly. They may say something and you may say it and it be totally off the mark. And it happens to me every week, every single week. That's the nature of the game. Do you know anybody in any profession that's 100% accurate or 100% perfect or 100% right 100% of the time? I would wager that you do not, or if you think you do, you don't know everything about them and their practice and what they do. And I'm talking teachers, lawyers, cafeteria workers, lawn people. It doesn't matter. Garbage collectors. It doesn't matter what we're talking about here. I would go out on a limb and paint with a really wide brush and say nobody is 100% of the time. So once you do those things, you create your relationship, you're honest, you set boundaries, you ask them to give you evidence, you ask them to help guide what kind of reading it's going to be so that it's most beneficial to them, to you, and to the client. And then you get past your fear of being wrong. Oh my gosh, the animal kingdom will come to you in ways that you cannot imagine. One time, I was reading for this gal who literally had postponed. She had not shown up a few times at her scheduled time. And then she had rescheduled literally like 15 times. And I hung in there with her because she was gifted this reading by someone who is very dear to me. And he asked me, please just hang in there with her. She's in shock. She's in grief. She's not doing well. Okay, no problem. So when we finally got to do the reading, I was staring out my front window and a woodpecker came and was tap, 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 tap. Well, where he was tap, tap, tapping, there were two trees that were growing together at the base, and then they'd kind of separated a little bit up. And I almost didn't buy the house. In fact, I really didn't want to, but my ex-husband was like, you're going to not buy a house over this? Ex-husband, right? Because when I looked at this tree, one half of the heart was on the one tree and the other half of the heart was on the other tree. It looked like lightning had just carved a heart in these trees, and either the tree split and separated at that time, or somehow, because I live in Florida, like we're the lightning strike capital of the United States, right? I know what it looks like when trees or things get struck by lightning. There's an unmistakable burnt kind of patterny thing that they have. And so he was tapping on the tree to my left and tapping right where the heart was, where that broken, because I called it, for as long as we lived there, I called it the broken heart tree. And I said to my client, I said, I feel like your son has come to you as a bird. And I could feel her stop breathing. And I said, are you okay? And she said, I'm fine. I'm okay. And her voice was getting smaller and her energy was withdrawing more. And I said, are you sure you want me to go on? She said, yes. I said, and I told her the story about the tree. I feel like you have a broken heart. I feel like this bird was sent so that you would know that this bird that showed up for you was your son who committed suicide. And I said, but I'm really drawn to the red. It's a red pileated woodpecker, and I'm really drawn to the red on his head. And I keep seeing a bedroom with everything red. The walls are red. The covers are red. The pillowcases. She said my son's favorite color was red. On his 16th birthday, we bought him a red sports car. He wore red all the time. His bedroom was red. Well, what the story was she was sweeping out her garage and a little yellow bird flew in and landed on a shelf and literally sat there with her and just watched her for like 10 minutes. And she didn't try to shoo him away, but she was able to get closer and closer and closer to this bird until finally she said, I know it's you, and mentioned his name, and the bird went and flew off. This woman has no experience in metaphysics. She has no experiences of any kind to draw from. So for her, it was unbelievable and shocking, and yet she wanted to believe, but it kind of scared her a little bit. And you're going to have that with clients. You're going to have clients that lie to you. You're going to say, I had a gal one time, I said, I feel like your husband is here, and he's showing me one of you in handcuffs going to jail for, a pretty reasonable amount of time. I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay. So evidence after evidence after evidence this guy supplied, but this woman was in such a state of shame and grief that she wasn't hearing it. She was acknowledging it, but she wasn't hearing it. So we got to the end of the reading, and I said, look, I it's not my job to try to prove myself to you. And I said, but I gotta give props to your husband. This guy has hung out for an hour giving evidence after evidence, and you're still just not in a place. And she goes, if you could just tell me what his nickname for me was, I would believe. And I asked him, and he said, Bird. Well, when I said that, this woman slid out of her chair. She just like in a cartoon, she just slid onto the floor and started, and I was like, because I'm not trained, I'm not a medical professional of any kind, I'm not trained to deal with anything like that, and it's been the very, very few and far in between that someone has lost it to that degree in my office. And I waited for her to get her composure, and she plopped back up in the chair, and she said, his nickname for me was Big Bird. And I said, well, I didn't hear the big part, but you are 6'2". She's a gal and she's 6'2". She's tall. And I said, he very clearly told me Bird. Well, then she told me, I'm ashamed I lied to you, and now I'm gonna make it right. I'm gonna tell you the truth. She said, I went to jail for, what she went to jail for, and it's a shame that she carries, and she's just so distraught that her husband is looking down on her, so disappointed in her, not loving her anymore, not wanting anything to do with her anymore. And that's not true in this particular case. And that's another way that animals can work with you. It might have come to pass that he gave, that the husband gave me the name Bird, the part of the nickname, but it certainly could have been the animal kingdom, birds at large, that helped facilitate that communication back and forth. And it certainly was the animal kingdom, the animal allies, the animal spirit guides that sent that pileated woodpecker to, we had 10 acres. So of all the trees that I could see in my front yard, because it was all trees, he had to pick that tree, tap, 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 tap on the broken heart trees of all the trees. And he had to come into my line of sight at that very moment for that very person. There you go. So animals may come to you literally, like live animals may show up in front of you. They may come to you like a picture in a book or a movie. They might come to you as just a word. You might hear their unusual sounds. Like when I know that somebody is about to be overwhelmed, I hear the sounds of cicadas. They only come out every 7 years, and it's a deafening sound. And it's just, the infestation. I love all animals, but when cicadas invade, oh my gosh. So they could come to you as a taste. You might taste barbecue beef or barbecue pork. If you're a vegetarian or a vegan or a pescatarian, you might see the restaurant that you and your family used to frequent that was a seafood restaurant, or a Thai restaurant where dad maybe always ordered the pad Thai with shrimp instead of chicken or whatever. I mean, it can be so many different things, but animals are such a huge part of our matrix of everything that connects us to them, to the earth, to each other, that bringing them into your readings, especially as a beginning medium, well, you could do yourself a lot of favors, because your clients will just be so, they'll just be so filled with love and with a healing energy that even if they loved Grandma Ethel, I just have never seen people experience unless you bring the animal kingdom into it. It's just that simple. And that might be the kind of clients that I attract, because I do love the animal kingdom so much and I am in such constant communication with them, that may be the energy that draws in those kinds of people. It's possible. I'm okay with that. And if that's the kind of, people, clients that you want, then you can send out that same intention also. So, I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope, sorry, one more thing. Going back to the intention. Okay, when you ask animals what their intention is when they show up in a mediumship reading or really any kind of meeting, ask them to show you if they are there as the spirit, totem, or power animal of your client, or really for yourself, if you are journeying, for yourself. Because when they show up, and there's a video, if you don't know what the difference is between a spirit, totem, and power animal, look on my channel. We'll put the video up at the end of this video. We'll link to it in the notes below, in the comments below. And because that will make a big difference. If they come to you as a spirit animal for the client, it means one thing. If they come to you as a totem animal, it means another. And if they come to you as a power animal, and those are very specific meanings for your clients, and it's really important that you know that for them, because then you can get granular. You can really drill down into what that reading is for them and how it can help them. So, all right, everybody, I'm Bernadette. And again, the Arc Animal Tarot, it is the most comprehensive animal tarot or oracle deck on the market. There are 100 cards in here in the main deck with a 380-page book. I'm so proud of this book. I get more comments on the book than I do the cards, really, but not really. The people love them all, but it's a full color book with the meaning of the tarot card and also of the animal. And then there are 49 extra cards available for you to get in the expansion packs, and their meanings and their pictures are in here also. So if you're thinking about working with animal spirits, none of us will ever get the opportunity, I don't think, to be around all that many different animals, traveling around the world to be in the presence of animals that are only indigenous to that part of the world or this part of the world, or even having personal experience with them. So the ARC cards are a really good way for you to start communing with those animals, because all of the cards they have real animals on them. They don't have, paintings or interpretations. And 149 animals is a really great amount to start with. It's interesting that the carp just showed up. I have a video I'm doing next week with a gal that I read for, and the carp showed up for her, and she was just jubilant. She was so filled with joy and thanks because it was such a specific, clear message for her. A carp, y'all, they're catfish, right? Like a carp. Who gets excited about a carp? But she's never going to forget it till the day that she crosses over. She's got a carp story. So it can help you get to know animals and work with animals that you wouldn't ordinarily think of. There are hyenas in there. There's a mantis shrimp. There's a sloth. There's a pangolin. All kinds of animals that you wouldn't normally think of coming to you, but they do, and for lots of different reasons. So I hope you consider getting the deck. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them below in that section. And I try to get back with everybody as much as I can. If I don't get back with you immediately or at all, please don't be offended. I have a lot. And I just, my greatest wish for you all is that you deepen your relationship with the animal kingdom and that you stay wild. Don't let them tame you. Stay wild. Bye, everybody. See you next time.